Friends, Molly here. I don't really need to do an intro. Well, I do. I guess I do need to do an intro. Doing a solo pod today. Also, I don't have anything to tell you about that's coming up because the spoiler alert of this podcast is that I'm taking the summer. I want to cry. I'm already crying. I'm taking the summer to really focus on my health and doing exactly what's necessary for me. And I don't have the luxury of not working. So I'm going to do the bare minimum of work and really focus on getting my health back, getting my recovery back in its original space, and experiencing joy. Here's a side note. This is probably going to be like a 5-part series because I have notes and I haven't even hit them. 2 things. First thing is, when I was writing Breaking Up with Sugar, anytime I have to write something that is about me, I really sit down and I say, I put my hands on my heart, I'm doing it right now. You know, what is true? What is true? What is true? Because I don't know about you. I always like life to look, like a good old fashioned PowerPoint. Just pretty on the inside, pretty on the outside. And that is not what life looks like. So I'm going to do my best to just try to tell you exactly what's true for me. Because I think that's what heals. That's my love language. A really dirty, ugly, messy truth heals me so much more than some kind of like contrived, looks good, end game kind of thing. So I'm going to try to do that. The other thing I really want to say is this, in the 12 steps, they have this great slogan that says, identify, don't compare. And boy, is that going to be the theme of today, because listen, I used to weigh 325 pounds and was deeply, darkly suicidal, addicted to food, addicted to alcohol, addicted to, misery. And I think there's a part of me that if that person was listening to this podcast today, I might get dark into, comparing myself out of what I'm saying to say, oh God, Molly, those aren't even problems. Look at me. I have 100 pounds to lose. Look at me. I have fibromyalgia, whatever. I think what I have to say is important because I am in our community. And I think, I don't know, listen, I was actually talking about this with somebody in my spiritual circle this morning. Man, we don't know anything. We have I speak for myself. I don't know anything. Life is so not linear, but B, the lessons that I have been given to learn, I mean, certainly since the beginning of this year, and I think my whole life, have been so far from, what I think I needed, and so deeply what I've needed, even though I didn't know I needed them. So, nothing's wrong, y'all. I'm fine. Just had COVID. I want to talk about it. COVID and eating disorders is the thing. One of my clients was saying that to me. She had COVID and she said, how are you not doing a podcast on COVID? First of all, you've had COVID for so long. Second of all, it's so tricky to have COVID and have an eating disorder. And the truth is, I have been meaning to do this podcast for so long, and I've just been putting it off and putting it off and putting it. I'm a big procrastinator. If you work for me, you know that. I have therapists that help me to activate myself and work with me. But it's interesting because I think actually today, I'm recording this on July 14th. Today is actually the exact right day for me because I've actually really evolved even in this journey, which I think is true of all of our journeys, right? Maybe tomorrow it would be completely different. So here's the thing I want to say. This is a real quotable. I said this in my group on Wednesday and everybody wrote it down, but I've probably listened to a million binges. I've listened to the stories of a million binges. And if I had to synthesize the 3 emotional reasons why we overeat, and by the way, while I'm up, why we overeat, why we restrict, why we weight obsess, there's lots of them. But if I had to say, if we were playing Family Feud and I was talking top 3, I would say the first reason is saying yes when we mean no, saying no when we mean yes, just really crossing our own boundaries, right? So, when you're at a party and you knew you shouldn't have gone, and then you get home and you eat, or you're there and you binge or whatever. The second one is because we are lacking needed nourishing and nourishment, nurturing and nourishment. I think that's a huge one, by the way. And so we go into the food because it does bring us that. I mean, the minute we were soothed with food when we were crying, when we were babies, and I write that about that, breaking up a sugar, it all got complicated. And so a lot of times, we go to that source because, that's just like the deepest primal thing we do. And the third one, I really believe this, and Brene Brown's done really great research on this, is because we don't have other joy in our life. Seriously, it's like we're lacking joy. And so we're just kind of caught in this cycle of obsession, right? Obsession of weight, obsession of body, obsession of food, obsession of restriction, obsession of exercise. All of this to say, I've actually noticed that happening with me a little bit, which is why I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to heal. So let me talk you through it. Let me talk you the lessons of my COVID. So I was tested positive for COVID in January of 2022. And I had symptoms of COVID all the way through May, and I'm pretty serious symptoms of COVID. I couldn't breathe. I'm not one who really takes any Western medicine. And I was taking an inhaler every day. Like, it was pretty bad. And I had a ton of brain fog and a ton of exhaustion. And this went on for, 4.5 months. And, it was a real big thing for me. Right. And then finally that passed. And then 10 days after I started to sort of feel myself again, I got COVID again. So 2022 could be it's my COVID year. And this long bout of COVID was one of the biggest catalysts of having to shift my life. Listen, I could shift my life, and what an absolute luxury that was, right? Like, I could say no to a lot of things, like especially work related. I had to cancel intensati. I had to cancel meetings. I had to cancel retreats. I had to cancel plans, just all in the name of, not even in the name of healthcare, frankly, just I literally couldn't. And I want to say, like, if you're in this camp, like, it is really, I think it was a real leap of faith for me. I've been so accustomed in my life, and this is real self-harm. I'll say this to you honestly, like, to just push through. And there was something about COVID that I actually just couldn't, I just couldn't push through, or maybe I'm healthy enough where I could, I don't know, potato, but it did really force me to slow down and create some boundaries around like what I didn't feel were loving actions. So I think that's really exciting and really great. But I think what my client was saying, she thought I should talk about, was how complicated food got for me. Really, really complicated. And so, I am off of sugar and flour almost 13 years in recovery from it. And I wouldn't say like at 13 years, I have much rigor around my food. There's a chapter in Breaking Up with Sugar called Humble Eating. And it's sort of that idea of humble eating is, knowing what works and knowing what doesn't, and then sort of honoring your intuition with that in mind. Like, if my body, I don't subscribe to intuitive eating, because I do think that my intuition, if I'm in an emotional space, which intuitive eating writes about, by the way, if I'm in an emotional space, is not necessarily what my wise mind is saying. If you haven't listened to the Wise Mind podcast, get on it. But my wise mind is never going to tell me to eat a cookie or eat low-fat granola or, have pancakes for breakfast. My wise mind is always going to say, you are sort of allergic to those things. Please don't do that. But generally, I really haven't thought much about food in the last few years. I didn't think much about weight. I don't really weigh my food. I had a little bit of a blip in COVID, lasted about a month and a half. I got some treatment for it, but food was feeling pretty easy in the last year or so. smooth sailing. Lucky me. I know. See, this is where I say, identify, don't compare. Don't get mad and turn it off. No need. That's just my experience. I think there's some important stuff for us all to learn here. And the other thing that, I really value, and this has been an amazing part of my life, is really healthy exercise, some rigorous healthy exercise. And that was a thing, and that for me has been like a game changer in my body image, which is to focus more on strength and capacity versus like this bulimic exercise, this bulimic injury inducing exercise that I was really into for a long time. And then, not being able to breathe really prevented me from doing any of that. I actually am pretty sure that my dog has saved my life in many ways because I had to walk him. And that was really the only exercise I've gotten in a really long time. So, I would say in many ways, in a low level way, not really crossing any of my sugar and flour bright lines or self limits or whatever you want to call them. I wasn't crossing those. I don't cross those. Those are really, really, really clear to me. But I was really scared. I was really scared of every part of this. I was scared of having COVID. I was scared it wasn't going to go away. I was lonely. I don't know. None of us know anything about COVID. I was frustrated. Not being able to breathe. It was just probably in its own way, I hardly even knew how to rest in the way that I needed to. And not really having the rigor that I was used to in my schedule. It was just really hard for me. And so I would have to say I definitely turned to, higher calorie foods and in greater quantities than maybe I eat or whatever it was. I just was eating maybe less mindfully or maybe with less intention and maybe with less integrity than I'm accustomed to. And I love that acronym for denial. That's what I'm really seeing too. Denial. Don't even know I am lying. And because I'm not even sure I knew I was doing it, to be honest with you. I think, perhaps I was eating more often than I'm used to. And I'm sure I was, whatever. That's the point of it. And at the end of it, I gained over 10 pounds. So some of you may be listening and being like, good for you, Molly, just 10 pounds, and listen, here's the research is very clear on 10 pounds. There's a really great Weight Watchers study from 1970. And it says that people who take action on gaining 5 pounds usually keep their weight off, and people who gain 10 pounds usually gain their weight back. That study always resonates with me because 10 pounds is like a new size. I mean, I'm very into the like athletisure Zoom outfits. So I wasn't even aware of it all that much, even though I was, my body feels different than it usually does. And I have to be honest, like it's not about the weight, but it is. And I'm a girl who comes from enormously high numbers, and, it felt like really high risk territory when I noticed that. So also, feeling really foreign in this body has been a really interesting and hard thing for me as well. Not just the size of it, but just the feel of it. I'm just used to being in a different kind of shape. Now, I subscribe also to the idea that if you shatter your foot, you need to be able to take care of your relationship with food still. So we can keep that aside, but that's just my truth today. And this weight gain really, really threw me. And it was in the I was in the middle of COVID, and I've learned so much from this is what I want to say. And I hope it's helpful to you. This is my primary spiritual space, is a group of people who tell the truth to each other. And like the flu shot, a little bit of my truth heals your, gives you the knowledge to heal your truth. Sort of a little bit of my disease might help. So I'm a victim of diet culture. Just like the next gal, and I noticed that when I figured out this weight gain, my first thought was like hustle mentality, hustle, like get out the measuring cups, like get clean with the food, like try to move a little bit more. I'm going to do it perfectly, get on track, all these things. I think I even say them like now in a way, like, let's get back on track. I mean, I say it gently. And I think it's really interesting because I would say that to myself some mornings when I woke up, and I would be like, you know what? That is literally the least loving thing you can do to yourself. Like, you're taking albuterol inhalers, like, you're really sick. I don't know that this is the day to start weighing and measuring. And friends, this is what I want to share with you. Like, and that was really what was true for me in the moment, like all this aggressive, changing of my food in that moment, in that exact moment, like, wasn't a loving act towards myself. Being rigorous around my food in that moment wasn't a loving act. I'm shocked by this in its own way. I really am. And that is what was true for me, right? Because my relationship with food today is so different than my relationship with food after my, enormous, aha moment about my relationship with sugar. When I first started coming back from this, pretty solid weight gain I had had after having bariatric surgery, I gained back more than half of the weight that I had had from bariatric surgery. I actually had to have a really precise program. I mean, I was because I was up, 100 pounds. I had to really get it together, as we say. Right. And that really was what worked. I needed very hardcore guardrails, and I needed a lot of attention on what I was putting in my mouth and what I was doing with my body. In that moment in my sweet house, when I could hardly breathe, and that was really loving 13 years ago. But in that moment, that wasn't loving. And I want to say this because there's, we are talking so much in our community about, well, how do I learn to trust myself? How do I learn to love myself? It's really specific. Like, I can't hand you the book. My book is changing as my life goes on too. Like, this is just what's true right now. And, something that might be loving to myself a week ago might not be loving to myself today. And that's true. And that counts. And also, like, we make mistakes. Like, that's the thing I also want you to know, I really needed to get true with myself, and realizing that in that moment, focusing on food just wasn't loving. I couldn't do it. And to force myself to do that was harmful. Relaxing, taking care of my health, resting, that was what was loving. Again, I want to say, even just all of these things are such luxuries. The world is such a tricky place right now. So I realize there are people who are in very desperate times and measures. But here we are trying to figure out what we're craving so that we can be awake and alive to be part of the world and be in the world and be helpful in this world. So just want to put that little truth in there. So, this whole experience is teaching me so anyway, when I was saying in the beginning, I don't know anything. I think I'm here to do one thing. I think I'm here to learn one thing, and I'm here to learn something completely different. I have to say, the last 2 years of my life has been the experiences that I've had, which have been really hard, this one being really in the top of it, have really brought my level of self-compassion and compassion for others to like an entirely new level. I think when I first started coaching and being a therapist, and I was in a different space, I think I didn't have the insight to see the human experience as broad as it is. I just wasn't able to see it. And as I've had to suffer and go through heartbreak and go through overwhelm and, go through loss and grief and all these things that I think all of us have gone through in the last, and disappointment, and all of us that had to go through in the last 2 years, what I've really come to is the softening. Pema Chodron talks about the softening of all of it. Right. So I always think it's about compassion and gentleness and forgiveness. There's a great podcast coming up with a woman who like really hated me for saying all this. And then she was like, oh, wait, maybe she's right. I just love that. You'll come. Her name's Joy. It's coming up in a few weeks. And I had to just come to a place where I said, I'm working on it. I'm just not ready to do it right now. I was talking to my mom about it. And I was telling her about the weight gain and whatever. And I was saying how I just didn't have the motivation at that time to do anything about it. And my mom said, well, what would you say to somebody who didn't have the motivation to do it? And I said, I'd probably say, maybe it's not the time for you to work on it. Maybe there's something else going on that you want to look at. That's what I mean. It's just been such an interesting event. And that's where I've been for a while. And one of the most beautiful things that happened for me, and that is happening for me, because I'm, again, and please, try to listen to this with compassion. It's 10 pounds, it's 15 pounds. And maybe you're listening with 115 or 215 pounds being like, this girl doesn't get it. I do get it. I do get it. This is my truth. And just put another number on it, identify, don't compare. Because I really need you to hear this. Because I was feeling so shameful and so sort of transparently disgusted in my body. So unfamiliar to me. And again, diet culture. And I finally just had this thought that came to me, which was, if you're this weight for the rest of your life, you'll be okay. Right. And that is what they talk about so often, which is that acceptance is the first space that we can change, radically accepting. I think that we can be in such deep denial or refusal. This can't be happening. What's going on? I hate this body so much. I hate COVID. Why did this happen? I got too scared. Why did I do this to myself? I mean, these are the things that come up for all of us, and finally, it was this is what has happened. This is where it is. It's gone off the guardrails a little bit, Mal. And if this is how your body is going to be, you'll be okay. You'll be okay no matter what. And you are lovable no matter what this body looks like. You are lovable. You are okay. I had to really digest that for a little bit. I really did, right? I have worth, even if I put on weight. I mean, this diet culture is someone just cracked our code, right? These are things that, I know, and I know one of my teachers, Carolyn Mesa, always says, it's easy to be grateful at a banquet, right? And it's really hard to be grateful when we're struggling. And so, when I'm in the body that I'm accustomed to, it's really easy to say I'm lovable no matter what, blah, 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 right? It's a little harder to do when I've gone away from what I know is the best stuff for me, or, gone into that new paradigm that I had to go into while I was so sick, right? So again, don't even know I am lying. I started, even though I was accepting that, I don't know. So I went out to lunch with my best friend randomly this weekend. And I was talking to her about this. I hadn't seen her in a while because I live in North Carolina now, but I'm out in New York for the summer. And I was just telling her about it. And I just want to say this because, fall down 7 times, get up 8. We never, ever know when the grace will come to us. That's why you always keep trying. You always keep trying, or you always tell the truth, or you always just keep on doing the things when you're looking to change, or looking to be validated, or looking to find a solution, or whatever, looking to heal. And I was just talking to her about it. And I was feeling very frustrated and sad. And I finally got the motivation and I got the desire, I guess, to start to take care of myself in the way that I'm used to. It feels loving now. I hope this makes sense to everybody. It feels loving. Now it feels loving to get back into the movement that my body, I think, craves. It feels loving right now to put some gentle limits on my food, how much I'm eating, when I'm eating, going back to the basics of what I've taught you all, right? Just simple, basic, right? Ordering something that may be a little less calorically dense, because I'm looking to release some weight right now. So I'm here. I think I've really lost my own thread in some ways, having been sick for this long. And I've also been working through all of it, and I'm going to work this summer, but I want to really try to regroup myself. I want to try to get as quiet as I possibly can this summer to really get into my heart and into my soul. And so I'm going to be taking time this summer to do that, and do a really minimal version of my life, which is I'll see my patients and I'll do the podcast, and I'm just going to put everything else on pause. That is a scary proposition to me, folks. I don't know about you. That's a scary proposition, to not do intensati, to not be on Instagram all the time, but you know what? First of all, I saw so many people I know and admire, Brene Brown, my friend Allie, like so many people just being like, yeah, I'm doing it. And I just felt so jealous. And then I was like, gosh, Molly, like, try to do it. Try to really do the brave thing. So I'm putting coaching with Molly on pause. I'm putting the retreat on pause. I'm putting intensati on pause, because I feel like I really need some time to focus on joy and my life. And it feels really important to me. And it feels like I can serve differently in that way. And I encourage you, if you're identifying with any of this, don't find the parts of what I'm saying that it's good for her, she can do that. Find the little micro moments that maybe you can do that. Like maybe your life is, listen, I have 3 jobs. Like that's how I pay the bills. Like I think there are still moments that you can find in your day and in your week where you can be focusing on nourishment, nurturing, joy. There's always ways that we can be setting limits where we're not crossing our own limits. And the other thing I need to say, which is a big thing I've done here, and it's always, there's always 2 answers, and one is surrendering and the other one is asking for help. A lot of people are current with this now. And what I mean by that is my people in my power circle know that I am in this space, and I'm, coming back into my old, it won't be my old relationship, but I'm coming back into a new relationship, like with my food, and I'm sort of tightening things up. Like I'm living with my best friend Lauren this summer, and she's like a champion with me here since I told her, and we go on walks together and, have meals together, and they're really loving and healthy. And my best friend Michelle is checking in on me, and my dear friend Francesca is, checking, like just a lot of people. I'm current with them. And listen, I think if I said, you know what, forget it, I want to not do this, no one would care. But it's like, it's good to feel supported, and it's good for people who love you and know you to know where you are. So if you're struggling, like, please make sure that there are people current with your struggle. And even if you're having a struggle, like finding time for joy and creativity and nourishment and nurturing, like maybe your best friend can watch your kids for 30 minutes and you can go and have a walk or have a meditation or watch a thing. Like, I don't know. You never know until you ask, right? So, I'm here to preach truth. I'm here to preach self-love, self-acceptance, right? In January, I could have given a great workshop on body acceptance and love, and I think that would have been true. It's just, I'm getting deeper lessons, and I'm really excited to share what sort of the end result of what I'm going through with everybody in September, and we'll figure out how and what we're going to be doing then. All I know is like when the universe puts up the sign for me to learn, I usually take its call, and here I am, right? And I'm approaching life in a deeper and more connected way, trying to be honest and real and hopeful. So what you're craving will be on every single week during the summer. And I'm going to check in on Instagram and Facebook, once a week, maybe just with a little posty post to say hi to you all, because I love you, and check in DMs and everything. So please stay in touch. Let me know what you think of. I don't even know. I didn't even read my notes. I just talked. God only knows how long I talked for, but this is my truth, friends. This is where I am. And I hope the truth healed you. I hope you didn't shut it off. If you did, I'm okay with that. And I'm excited to see what all of this rest and joy and nurturing brings forth for our community in the fall. So love you. Stay tuned and know that I love you and I believe in you every minute of every day.